Should you get the iPhone 5 here in 2024? So the iPhone 5 came out back in 2012, which was over 12 years ago. And in this video, we're going to go over the design, the specifications, and whether or not this device is still worth getting here in 2024. So the device that I have here is the iPhone 5C, and this one is the iPhone SE. And basically, the iPhone 5C is basically the iPhone 5, except it's in a plastic shell. So I'm just going to be using this for the majority of the video. And this is the design that the iPhone 5 has. So starting off with the design, the iPhone 5C has a plastic shell, and the regular iPhone 5 has a more metallic design. And these right here are both antennas, and it has more of a square body design. And at the bottom, we do also have a headphone jack, and the power button is located at the top, unlike with modern iPhones where it's located at the side. So the screen on the iPhone 5C is very small, so it's only 4 inches diagonally. And if we compare it to modern iPhones like the iPhone 15 Pro, the iPhone 15 Pro is going to be 6.7 inches. So the screen that you're getting here is very small. Now moving on to the specs of the iPhone 5, I'm going to start off with the performance. And the iPhone 5 and the 5C both have just 1GB of RAM, and they both also have the Apple A6 chip. So it is going to be really slow, and even when you use the web, it does take a while to load different websites. So it's definitely going to be hard to use the internet on this device. And as for online gaming, it is really slow. I tried doing online gaming on here, and it's almost impossible to do on both the iPhone 5 and the iPhone 5C. So the performance is definitely going to be a big issue on here. And as for the storage, this device has 16, 32, and 64GB models. And if you go higher up in storage, then it'll cost you quite a bit to buy the device. And as you can see here, the one that I have has 16GB of storage. And you can check this by going into settings, then into general, and down to storage and iCloud usage. Then press on manage storage, and it'll show up for you. Now moving on to the display of the iPhone 5C, this device has a 4-inch screen as I mentioned earlier, and this goes for both the iPhone 5 and the iPhone 5C, and the screen resolution is 326 pixels per inch. And when I try looking up close on the device, I don't really see the pixels, so the display is definitely not an issue on here, and the overall screen resolution is 640 by 1136 pixels. Now that's basically all there is for the display of the iPhone 5C. Let's move on to the camera. So we're going to start off with a photo test on here, and before we do that, I'm going to talk about the specs. So the photo quality on here is going to be at 8 megapixels, and the video resolution is at HD at 30 FPS. So starting off with a photo test, so here's a rear camera photo on the iPhone 5. Pause the video if you need to, and just for comparison, here's what a photo looks like on the iPhone 14 Pro. So this is not the latest iPhone, this is the year before, from 2022. And now here's what the front camera looks like. So first we have the iPhone 5, and here's the front camera on the iPhone 14 Pro. So that's all there is for the photo test on the iPhone 5C and the 14 Pro. Let's move on to the video quality. So here's what video looks like on the iPhone 5C, and the video quality on here is not that good at all, especially the lighting. And I'm going to also try focusing on this device so that you can see the details. I guess it could get the job done, but it's nothing that you would want to upload on social media or anywhere online because the video quality on here is pretty awful. And when we switch to the front camera, it is going to get a lot more grainy. So here's what the video looks like on the rear camera of the iPhone 14 Pro, just for comparison. And I'm going to try focusing on this device so that you can see the details. And the lighting definitely does improve here quite a lot. And it is definitely a huge difference from the iPhone 5. So let's move on to the front camera video test on the iPhone 5C. So here's what video quality looks like on the front camera of the iPhone 5 and the 5C. Like I mentioned earlier, the camera quality is going to be the exact same on both of the devices. And in case I didn't mention earlier, the front camera can record at 720p at 30 frames per second. Now just for comparison, here's the front camera on the iPhone 14 Pro, and for context, the front camera can record at 1080p at 60 FPS on the iPhone 14 Pro. And one thing that I noticed is that it does do a lot better on focusing on objects a lot quicker. So on the iPhone 5, it will take a lot longer to do that. And that's all there is for the photo and video test on the iPhone 5. So let's now move on to the battery life. Now moving on to the battery life of the iPhone 5 and the 5C, I'm pretty sure this is where the iPhone 5 and the 5C get different. So I'll show up the battery life on both of these devices up on the screen. But they're both very similar. And just for comparison, here's the iPhone 15 Pro, the latest iPhone's battery life up on the screen, just for comparison. And it is a pretty big difference. The iPhone 5 and the 5C don't get a lot of battery life at all. From my own experience, it's decent because it does run an older software version, but it definitely doesn't run that long. Now that's pretty much it for the specifications and the design of the iPhone 5. So now let's talk about whether or not it's still worth buying here in 2024. So I don't recommend this device to anybody at all here in 2024, and this goes for both the iPhone 5 and the 5C. But if you have to go for one of these devices, then I would say go for the iPhone 5C, because it is going to be cheaper and the plastic design doesn't really bother me. But my favorite place to get it from would be from eBay. So just go onto eBay, search up iPhone 5C, and you can get it for really cheap, probably around 25 bucks. And as for the iPhone 5, it'll be several bucks more. But for the majority of you, I would say go aim for a better iPhone. So probably the iPhone SE first generation or the second generation could be good options. So the first generation would cost you about 35 bucks. And the battery life on here is pretty awful, but everything else on here is decent. And as for the iPhone SE 2, this device is going to perform a lot better with everything, including online gaming and the internet and all that. It's going to perform great. And it also has a decent camera. So if you're willing to spend up to 100 bucks, then definitely go for the iPhone SE 2. And if you're planning on not getting a phone number or any cellular service on here, then you can also get one that's locked on the cell service for about 75 bucks. So that's pretty much all there is for the iPhone 5 and the 5C here in 2024. And that's all there is to talk about. So if you found this video helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out my channel to see more videos like this in the future. And if you have any video suggestions, make sure to leave them in the comments below.